Today, we're going to tackle a puzzle that lives inside every single one of us, motivation. And I'm not talking about willpower or just, trying harder. We're going to dive into the actual science, the wiring inside our brains that really controls our drive. So let's get into it.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You've got that big project staring you in the face or that workout you promised yourself you'd do. You know exactly what the next step is, but you just can't start. It's that super frustrating feeling where the engine just won't turn over. But what if I told you it's probably not your fault?
And this right here is the single most important idea we're going to talk about today. That feeling isn't some kind of personal failure. It's a biological signal. The struggle with motivation is real, and it's happening at the level of brain chemistry. And you know what the best part is? Because it's a chemical system, it's a system we can learn to work with. Okay, so to understand that system, we have to meet the main character in our story, a powerful little chemical messenger that is pretty much running the whole show. This is dopamine, and here's the biggest misconception about it. So many people call it the pleasure chemical, but it's really the motivation chemical. It's not the reward you get at the end, it's the chemical that's released in the pursuit of the reward. It's your brain's way of saying, hey, go get that thing. It's the chemical of wanting. Now, this system isn't just random. It runs on this specific, ancient superhighway in your brain called the mesolimbic pathway. You can think of it like our original survival software, designed millions of years ago to make sure we seek out and repeat the behaviors that keep us alive. So here's how that superhighway actually works. Step 1, your brain spots something it thinks might be rewarding, like, say, the idea of finally finishing a chapter in that book you're writing. Step 2, this flips a switch in a region called the VTA. That's kind of the starting line for motivation. Step 3, the VTA then floods another area, the nucleus accumbens, with dopamine. And all of that creates step 4, a really powerful subconscious command. That felt good, let's do that again. But okay, where does that feeling of reward even come from? Well, it turns out our brains have two very different engines for motivation. And knowing the difference between them is absolutely key. So on one side, you've got intrinsic motivation. This is when you do something just because the act itself feels good, like getting lost in a hobby or solving a puzzle just for the fun of it. But on the other side, you have extrinsic motivation. And that's all about the outcome. You're putting in the hours for a paycheck, you're studying for the grade, or you're exercising to hit a number on the scale. And this is where it gets really fascinating. These aren't just psychological ideas, they are physically separate systems in your brain. Check this out. Intrinsic motivation, that pure joy of doing something, it lights up a part of your brain called the anterior insular cortex, which is tied to self-awareness and feeling. But extrinsic motivation, chasing that bonus or grade, that activates the ventral striatum, our classic reward-seeking circuit. Your brain literally has two different ways to get you moving. So if we've got these systems built into us, what controls them? Well, one of the most powerful levers we have is our mindset. Yep, the actual beliefs we hold about our own abilities. A fixed mindset is that little voice that says, I'm just not a math person. But a growth mindset says, you know what? I can get better at math if I practice. And what the science is showing us now is that this simple shift in how you think actually physically rewires your brain. Seriously, this isn't just about positive thinking. When you adopt a growth mindset, it creates real, tangible, measurable changes in your brain's circuitry. It makes you more resilient and more motivated, especially when you hit a setback. And here's the proof. When we mess up, a part of our brain called the anterior cingulate cortex, you can think of it as our internal uh-oh circuit, it lights up. Well, neuroscientists have found that in people with a growth mindset, this area is way more active. What that means is their brains are literally paying closer attention to their mistakes, not as failures, but as really valuable data for how to improve. So, the science is clear. Your motivation isn't set in stone. It's a skill you can actually build. Now let's get practical. Let's talk about the science-backed strategies you can use to start rewiring your own brain for more drive. First things first, you have to give your dopamine system a clear target. A vague goal like, I'm going to get in shape is just too fuzzy for your brain to latch onto. But a goal like, I'm going to walk for 20 minutes every morning, that's specific, it's measurable. Your brain can actually anticipate that reward, and it will release the dopamine you need to get you out the door. Okay, if a goal feels huge and overwhelming, your brain actually registers it as a threat. And what do we do with threats? We avoid them. That's procrastination. The solution is to break it down into tiny, achievable steps. Each little victory gives you a small hit of dopamine, which creates this amazing positive feedback loop where the feeling of making progress itself becomes addictive. There's this great example of an architect named Murray who was totally burnt out. She was just stuck. But she started applying this exact principle, breaking her massive projects into tiny, manageable steps, and then actually celebrating each small win. And by doing that, she essentially retrained her brain's entire reward system. She started to crave the feeling of progress more than the temporary comfort of distraction. And this last strategy might just be the most powerful and the most counterintuitive. When you have a bad day and you beat yourself up about it, you are literally shutting down your brain's motivation circuits. It's like pouring water on a fire. But the research is so clear on this. Self-compassion does the exact opposite. Treating yourself with some understanding after a setback actually makes you more resilient and way more likely to try again. So the crucial point in all of this is that motivation is not something you either have or you don't. It's not a fixed trait. It is a dynamic process rooted in your brain's chemistry and wiring, and it is absolutely a skill you can actively develop and train over time. So here's your toolkit for becoming the architect of your own drive. First, you've got to understand that dopamine reward circuit. Give your brain a clear target. Second, nurture those intrinsic drivers for deep, lasting satisfaction. Third, cultivate a growth mindset so you can turn any setback into fuel. And fourth, start engineering small wins to build that unstoppable momentum. So this isn't just interesting information, it's an invitation. You really do have the power to be the architect of your own drive. The only question left is, what's the very first small win you're going to build for yourself? If this helped you understand things a little better, consider subscribing for more deep stories that break down the science behind how we work.